The Beatles' White Album, a masterpiece of musical innovation, yet shrouded in an aura of mystery and unease. From chaotic recording sessions to eerie soundscapes, and even real-life events connected to its songs, the album has taken on an almost haunted reputation over the decades. Was it simply a reflection of the turbulent times, or is there something truly unsettling about it? Today, we explore every detail of what makes the Beatles' 1968 classic feel haunted. Chapter 1: The Cultural and Political Climate of 1968. To understand the White Album's depth, we must first immerse ourselves in the world of 1968, a year marked by global upheaval. The Vietnam War raged on, sparking widespread protests. The assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4th.
Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis.
And Senator Robert F. Kennedy on June 5th sent shockwaves through the United States. Social movements challenged traditional norms, and the counterculture was in full swing. This turbulent backdrop influenced the Beatles, who were not isolated from these events. Chapter 2: The Beatles' Journey to India. Seeking spiritual solace amidst global chaos, the Beatles traveled to Rishikesh, India, in February 1968 to study transcendental meditation under Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. This retreat was intended as a period of peace and creative rejuvenation. During their stay, they composed a significant number of songs, many of which would later feature on the White Album. In a postcard to Ringo Starr, who had returned to England earlier, John Lennon wrote, "We've got about 2 LPs worth of songs now, so get your drums out." This prolific period was, however, tinged with disillusionment. Lennon, in particular, became skeptical of the Maharishi's intentions, leading to the group's departure in April 1968. Chapter 3: The Esher Demos, May 1968. Upon returning to England, the Beatles convened at George Harrison's home in Esher to record demos of their new material, known as the Esher Demos. These sessions captured the raw, acoustic essence of the songs. Tracks like Dear Prudence and While My Guitar Gently Weeps were first laid down in this intimate setting, providing a glimpse into the band's creative process. Chapter 4: The Recording Sessions at Abbey Road. The official recording sessions commenced on May 30th, 1968, at Abbey Road Studios. Unlike their previous collaborative efforts, these sessions were marked by individual pursuits. Paul McCartney worked on Blackbird alone. John Lennon recorded Julia without the other members, and tensions escalated. On August 22nd, 1968, Ringo Starr, feeling marginalized, left the band. He spent time on actor Peter Sellers' yacht, contemplating his future. The remaining members continued recording, with Paul McCartney handling drums on Back in the USSR and Dear Prudence. Realizing Ringo's importance, they persuaded him to return on September 4th, welcoming him with flowers adorning his drum kit. The album's minimalist cover, designed by Richard Hamilton, featured a plain white sleeve with the band's name embossed, a stark contrast to the vivid imagery of Sgt. Pepper. Hamilton described it as a reflection of the band's fragmented state, an empty canvas inviting listeners to project their interpretations. Chapter 5: In-depth analysis of selected tracks. The White Album's eclectic mix spans various genres and moods. Let's delve into some of its most notable tracks. 1. Back in the U.S. Opening the album with an energetic rock and roll vibe, Paul McCartney's Back in the USSR was influenced by the Beach Boys and Chuck Berry, recorded during Ringo's absence. McCartney played the drums himself. The song humorously references the Soviet Union, showcasing the band's playful side amidst political tensions. 2. Dear Prudence. Written by John Lennon in India, Dear Prudence was inspired by Prudence Farrow, who became deeply engrossed in meditation. The song invites her to come out to play, reflecting Lennon's concern for her well-being. The track features a soothing melody juxtaposed with an underlying sense of urgency. 3. While My Guitar Gently Weeps. George Harrison's masterpiece, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, delves into themes of love and human nature. Eric Clapton contributed the iconic lead guitar solo, adding a layer of soulful melancholy to the track. 4. Happiness is a Warm Gun. A complex composition by John Lennon, Happiness is a Warm Gun weaves together multiple song fragments. The title was inspired by a gun magazine slogan, and the song's shifting time signatures and dark lyrics create an unsettling yet captivating experience. 5. Blackbird. Paul McCartney's Blackbird features intricate finger-picking guitar work and was inspired by the civil rights movement in the United States. The song's simplicity and poignant lyrics have resonated with audiences for decades. 6. Revolution 9. An avant-garde sound collage, Revolution 9 stands as the album's most experimental track. Chapter 6. The haunting nature of Revolution 9. Among the most enigmatic and unsettling tracks on the White Album is Revolution 9. This 8-minute sound collage, largely assembled by John Lennon with assistance from Yoko Ono and George Harrison, is a swirling mass of reversed speech, orchestral loops, distorted voices, and abstract noise. Many listeners describe an eerie feeling while listening to it, as if the track itself holds some hidden, chaotic energy. The most famous part of the track is the repeated phrase, "Number 9. Number 9. Some Beatles fans claim that when played in reverse, it sounds like "Turn Me On, Dead Man," fueling conspiracy theories about Paul McCartney's supposed death. While this is likely a coincidence, the unsettling effect of the track cannot be denied. The repetition, combined with the distorted sounds, creates an atmosphere that feels like a descent into madness, perfectly reflecting the psychedelic nature of the era. Paul McCartney reportedly disliked Revolution 9 and argued against its inclusion on the album. However, John Lennon insisted on keeping it, believing it to be an important avant-garde statement. Over the years, the track has become one of the Beatles' most debated and misunderstood works. While it might not have been a commercial success, it cemented the band's shift into more experimental territory. Despite McCartney's objection, it remains a key part of the White Album's unique sound. Chapter 7. Helter Skelter and its Dark Legacy. Paul McCartney set out to create one of the heaviest rock songs of all time. After reading a review of The Who's I Can See for Miles, the result was Helter Skelter, a frenzied, distorted, and chaotic track unlike anything the Beatles had recorded before. McCartney pushed his voice to the limit, screaming the lyrics over a relentless, pounding guitar riff. The song's intensity made it a standout on the album, but its legacy was forever marred by its association with Charles Manson. In 1969, Charles Manson interpreted the song as a coded prophecy about an impending apocalyptic race war. He believed the Beatles were sending him messages through the album, and that Helter Skelter signified chaos. Tragically, this delusion led to the brutal murders of Sharon Tate and 6 others by Manson's followers in August 1969. Paul McCartney later admitted that Helter Skelter had been forever ruined by its association with Manson. In a 1976 interview, he said, "When I wrote it, it was just about the British fairground ride. But after what happened, it became something else entirely." Chapter 8. Cry Baby Cry and the Hidden Whisper. Cry Baby Cry is a haunting lullaby-like track penned by John Lennon, featuring surreal lyrics about an imaginary royal family. But what makes the song particularly eerie is what comes after it. At the very end of the song, if you listen closely, you can hear a ghostly fragment of Paul McCartney's voice whispering, "Can you take me back where I came from?" This unlisted track, simply called "Can You Take Me Back," has a spectral quality, as if a lost soul is calling out through the record. Chapter 9. Supernatural Theories and Strange Listener Experiences. Over the years, many Beatles fans have reported strange occurrences while listening to the White Album. Some claim they've heard phantom whispers on certain tracks, while others describe an overwhelming feeling of unease, particularly during Revolution 9. Some have even suggested that the album carries an eerie energy, as if it absorbed the chaos and darkness of the time in which it was recorded. While these claims are purely anecdotal, the White Album remains one of the few Beatles records that listeners often describe as unsettling. Chapter 10. Tensions between the Beatles during the sessions. Beyond the eerie music, the making of the White Album was filled with internal strife. John Lennon was growing increasingly dependent on Yoko Ono, bringing her into the studio every day, which frustrated the other members. Meanwhile, Paul McCartney's perfectionism caused friction, particularly with George Harrison and Ringo Starr. One of the most infamous arguments occurred over Oblad. Paul McCartney insisted on re-recording it multiple times, driving the other members to frustration. According to engineer Jeff Emmerich, John Lennon stormed into the studio one night, played a loud, aggressive piano intro, and declared, "That's how the song should sound." That take was ultimately used on the final album. George Harrison also felt sidelined during the sessions, leading him to write Not Guilty, a song that directly addressed his frustrations with the band. The song was ultimately left off the album, despite being fully recorded. Chapter 11. The impact of the White Album after its release. Upon its release on November 22, 1968, the White Album received mixed reviews. Some critics praised its diversity and ambition, while others felt it was disjointed and overindulgent. Over time, however, it has come to be regarded as one of the Beatles' greatest works. Many artists cite the White Album as a major influence, from alternative rock bands like Radiohead to heavy metal pioneers like Black Sabbath. The album's willingness to experiment with different sounds set a precedent for future musicians. Chapter 12. Is the White Album haunted? With its eerie songs, chaotic history, and real-life tragedies connected to it, some believe the White Album carries a haunted aura. Is it truly cursed, or is it simply a reflection of a dark period in history? Regardless of what you believe, one thing is certain: the White Album remains one of the most complex, mysterious, and haunting records of all time. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. Do you think the White Album has an eerie energy? Let us know.